Hello, this is a recorded presentation for friends, as well as my best attempt at not editing a video. The script got a bit out of hand, the subject is a special interest, and English is not my native language, so I am really sorry if this is bad. Let's say it's amateurish, to fit the subject. Because today I will talk about an old French web series. The story takes place in a world where three major planes exist: the human realm, heaven, and hell. In a classic Christian-inspired way, heaven and hell are fighting to know who will claim the human realm as theirs to rule. In the distant past, it led to devastating wars, so much that it almost destroyed Earth. Begrudgingly, angels and demons had to cease fire and sealed the way to our realm. Once each 2,000 years, an emissary from both factions would come to Earth, judge if the humans were good or bad, and decide on the fate of humanity. The system worked alright for millennia, but demons found a way to start interfering again. Humans created organizations like the Order in return. The Order is a weird mix, but let's say they are a Catholic-flavored secret society with magic powers. The Order is also very bad at understanding prophecies. Unfortunately, one of said prophecies is about the emissaries. If the two cross paths, it will destroy the world. The Order wants to avoid that, so they prepare a countermeasure named Project Damned. In the series they say Damned, but it's just bad French pronunciation. So the idea is to trap the emissaries in two different human bodies and never let them meet. The project is a success and the first emissary, the demon prince Balor, is captured successfully. This is where the web series starts, a few years later. In the first episode, a girl named Samantha is saved by two members of the Order, Joanne and Shinji. Like every first episode of a thing that is not planned in advance, it's quite bare bones. The second episode is where things start to be coherent. Joanne and Shinji quit the Order and are now freelance exorcists, where Samantha, who has inherited her ancestors' witch power. They are not very popular, due to their tendency to make a mess of their client's house, but they are the only team in the city, so it's not a problem. That changes when a few new psychic agencies settle down in the city. They are less destructive, more efficient, and cheaper, so it's bad. Our heroes, in true good guys fashion, decide to eliminate the competition. When the conventional methods of planting a bomb, defenestrations, or assassination don't work, they convince Shinji to summon a demon. Problem is, Shinji doesn't know how to unsummon the demon. They have to save the city by fighting it. All is well that ends well, and business is doing great. Third episode starts with a convention. To our heroes' horror, the city wants to promote itself to professionals of the supernatural. They try to sabotage the event, but they are caught. In the chaos that ensues, Samantha is cursed. Shinji and her end up in prison for 20 years after insulting the judge. They are liberated soon after by Joanne, who asked his father, a big shot of the Order, to help them. As a result, they are re-enrolled in the organization and sent on a mission with a not suspicious at all agent named Loki. They have to find 3 artifacts that contain demons, but can also return Samantha to her original state. Once they succeed, Loki reveals that he is indeed a traitor and destroys the medallion's seal. We learn that he and Shinji are Nightblades, mages getting their abilities from an imprisoned demon, and that if they use their powers too much, they can be possessed. Everyone fights. The bad guys lose. One of the demons, Seth, ends up fusing with a Pikachu and will remain a victim for the rest of the series. In the fourth episode, the second emissary, Archangel Dominic, arrives on Earth and the Order fails to capture him. They panic, and to avoid the end of the world, they decide to eliminate the vessel of the first emissary, a Nightblade we know well, Shinji. In the meantime, our favorite exorcist discovers that a real angel is doing miracles everywhere in their city. Joanne is delighted, but the other two fear for their jobs. They end up forming an alliance with Seth and two vampires to eliminate the winged menace. Very passage ensues, the Order fails to kill Shinji, and he and Dominic fight. Shinji releases the full extent of Balor's power, realizing the prophecy. Everyone dies. In the waiting room to the afterlife, Dominic admits that the Order misinterpreted the prophecy as something to actively counter instead of a guideline about the visit periods, thus fucking everything up. He ends up offering to erase Shinji's existence from the mortal realm, so that the past rewrites itself without the last fight. Shinji would avoid damnation by working for the angels, who could use the power of a demon prince to regain influence on the mortal realm. End of Season 1. Season 2 starts with Seth being attacked and injured by a demon hunter. This is Remy. He is your typical edgy, angsty deuteragonist. His family was killed by demons in a tragic backstory, and the only things he cares about is vengeance and another orphan, Clément. To make her happy, he brings back some demon blood for her magic. But Clément's magic is extremely unstable, so instead of finding the next lottery results, she accidentally resuscitates Shinji. Shenanigans ensue, and both Shinji and Seth, now linked by blood magic, end up living with Remy, Clément, and their dog, Choupette. That's a very cute name for a not very cute dog. Shinji still works for the Angels, so they send him and his new team to investigate the Templars of Baal, an organization that helps demons. Turns out they are a cult who wants to, allegedly, liberate humanity from heaven and hell's influence, and they want to recruit Remy. Negotiations don't go well. Our heroes are losing the fight pretty badly when Seth devises a plan. The plan is both a great success and an absolute disaster, because that's what happens when you choose to put your trust in a demon you bullied for 2 seasons. The Templars are defeated, but Shinji's consciousness is overpowered by his demon. He kills Seth, destroying the blood magic, and Shinji dies as a result. Only the demon prince Balor remains free. This is the end of Season 2. Season 3 is the last, and I am devastated because I couldn't find where I put my physical copy. So hey, it's already a very lengthy summary. Let's just say that Remy and Clément are working hard to bring back their friend. The Order is still terrible with prophecies, and Balor has a nice little culinary trip that ends with him being sealed again. So why do I like this series so much? First, there is the combat. The first title card of the series describes it as a great esoteric fresco to the glory of bad kung fu. I don't think it's the truth. First, because this is clearly not kung fu. And second, because I don't think it's bad, especially when compared to other productions of the same period. Depending on the actors, it can even be quite good. The first episode is surprisingly the one with the fight that feels the most real, by moments. But I feel like it's because they didn't completely get that punches are supposed to be faked. The entire series is very combat heavy, in a style that is sometimes very inspired by Japanese animation. There are 2 types of action scenes in them, comedic and badass. The two can be mixed seamlessly in the same fight, with various proportions depending on the character. Some characters lean more on the serious side, like Remy, while others are definitely on the funny side, like Seth. But everyone gets at least a moment to look cool and a moment to look stupid. I think it's because the main cast are friends and family. Contrary to paid actors, their main incentive to help is to be proud of their character. So to make everyone happy, they each have their own time to shine. The serious moments benefit from the contrast with more ridiculous ones, and vice versa. If a scene is meant to look cool, Cue the music, dramatic anime yelling, and special effects. Sometimes it falls a bit flat, but there is clearly a conscious choice to iconize the characters. And then, if 3 seconds later, said character is smacked face first into a wall because they were stupid, it still works by contrast, and we didn't have the time to cringe at it being too ambitious. It's an intelligent method to set a good rhythm while distracting from the lack of professionalism. In a way, we can say that fights are taken seriously, but not taking themselves seriously. It's the same with characters. They are all simultaneously very earnest and absolutely terrible, no matter if they are good guys or bad ones. I'd argue that the heroes are worse than the antagonist. What we learned during the first season is that Shinji has anger control issues, is a bit stupid, short-sighted, and that it's not the fault of his demonic possession. You know when a villain kills the dog for no reason as a way to show that he is evil? Yes, that trope is used for the main character, a minute into episode 2. Samantha is ruthless, smart, obsessed with money, a murderer, a cheater, and a liar. She is frequently carrying cooking utensils instead of her magic wands, despite being bad at cooking. Johan is a complete idiot, alcoholic, thinking that you shall not kill is optional against non-Christians, and he has daddy issues. His actor is very expressive, so he fills the comic relief role pretty well. Well, you could say that almost every character is a comic relief, but some are more than others, and he is a more clear-cut example. The second season's characters are maybe not domestic terrorists, but are still shown as flawed. Shinji is still Shinji. Clément is a sadist, completely chaotic, not very competent, and a bit of a fangirl cliché. She is often the one who breaks the balance of fights by unintentionally injuring or saving her friends. Remy tries to kill before he talks, is socially inept, and is globally angsty as fuck. I did not realize how his entire type of character hinges on their charisma, until the actor changed and Remy became a full-mouthed potted plant for one episode. The angels, as the camp of good, are flawed too. They range from friendly alcoholic to crazy warlord mass murderer. As for demons, it's their job to be evil, but they are not immune to have heroic qualities. Seth, surprisingly, has a brain, and even regularly saves his allies despite hating them. Pretty unbecoming for a high-ranked demon. Some secondary characters are really cool too. My favorites are Albert, the network manager, Natalie, the cartomancer, unsurprising, I know, for a lesbian, Archangel Gabriel, because he's both extremely cool and treated like a kid by everyone, and Sion, Shinji's mentor. His actor is genuinely good. It must have been evident since the beginning, because he is credited with actor's direction here and there since at least 2004. He is also a literature teacher, which means some students had classes with the interpret of Sadoman. That must feel extremely weird. All of the actors had their own job or studies outside of video production, and not a lot of them are in the audiovisual domain. It has pretty major consequences on the plot. The director changing cities changes the cast, like between season 1 and 2. People having a life and not being able to come to film means adapting the intrigue on the flight, or if it's too complicated, replacing who plays certain characters. Sometimes it's explained, sometimes not. The opposite happens too. If someone is a friend, they are reutilized to play different characters, antagonists in particular, since they generally die at the end of their part of the story. It becomes a bit confusing sometimes. In general, you can see a role as a mark of appreciation. Illustrators like Virak, Ran, or Nicolas Itoride all had their own cameo or role after making art for the series. As a little aside, they did really cool things. And they still do really cool things. So, with the idea that affinity had a major part in role attribution in mind, let's take a look at crosscasting with the other web series of the same period. The main cast appeared in other series like France 5 and Noob. Secondary cast too. This is also the case for the main and secondary cast of other series that we can find in little roles in Damned. Some of them also act as stunt doubles and choreographers. I probably forgot some cameos, and this is only the image tip of amateur filmmaking at the time, but I don't have enough space to fit everything. The credits also show no real separation between behind and in front of the camera. With no specialized crew, actors not doing a scene would pick up the sound, reflectors, or camera if they knew how to operate it. Anyone with an average body type was a faceless henchman at one time or another, and they shared some filming locations and figuration. That porosity is pretty telling, in particular with France 5. It's interesting because those people have, in fact, a very linked common history. Most of them met during the different iterations of a convention, the cartoonist Toulon, which ran at the end of the 90s until 2003. It organized a series of competitions for amateur movies, and it launched entire collectives. The Guardians, who are the one behind Damned, but also Funglisoft, which will transform later into Olydri Production, today a much bigger structure. Some of those people accessed a few years later to influential positions. With the opening of new TV channels in the 2000s, Alex Pilot and Sébastien Ruchet, the director and the main actor of France 5, became co-creators of No Life, a channel based around video game, geek, and Japanese culture. It was a small organization where some of the people you saw earlier helped. When they searched for new programs to respect the minimum quotas for French content, the amateur circles were already there, ready to try their hands at producing for TV. It led to new series, like Noob or Flanders Company, but that's another story. What's interesting is that it's a very small world, born in a specific context. Le Visiteur du Futur was also broadcasted on No Life, but does not have the same roots, so it's not surprising the cast overlap is smaller. With the popularization of video making in general, and YouTube in particular, I don't think there's a tight-knit amateur scene like that anymore. Part of it evolved to become semi-professionals, losing a bit in spontaneity. New video collectives emerged in a different context with different ties, more dependent on a single platform. With the decline of the physical support culture, YouTube changed a lot of things. The relationship to copyright, in particular, has drastically evolved. It changed to match the American standards in the last 20 years, and this is tightly related to how video content is spread. In the past, however, amateur collectives were true pirates, for music in particular. You liked music you heard from the radio, an anime OST or an epic movie score? Why not using it for your next magic kung fu battle? No harm done, and the battle will look way cooler. That's why nowadays it's almost impossible to find an episode of the first seasons of Damned with the sound intact on YouTube. The legal mentions for the season 1 DVD has a very funny quote that summarizes that attitude pretty well. It says, "Any utilization, reproduction, lending, exchange, diffusion in public, with or without paying entry, TV broadcasting, in part or in its entirety, exportation without authorization, is greatly recommended, under penalty of pursuit on a parking lot at night very late when everyone is supposed to sleep." The pirate approach can also be seen in other ways, in particular with crossovers. A lot of those are obvious, and are, of course, a bit disrespectful. For example, the Ghostbusters, the Smurfs, Link, and Harry Potter are all killed on screen. Pikachu becomes part of a demon during a fusion from Dragon Ball. The USS Enterprise is used as a projectile, and there is a team of magical girls led by Sailor Moon, a play on word between moon and muscle. The Sailor Moon motif is also used in one of the bonus of Season 2, with magical girls named after alcohol brands. Of course, the most referenced universe/fandom/whatever is Christianity. It's a religion as seen by Renaissance authors, seen by Japanese developers, seen by atheists. The end result is quite far from the canon. I like how angels have a combat transformation and priests are basically a RPG subclass that invocates things. The references are not always so evident or used for humor. You can spot hand gestures from Naruto for spellcasting, a ghost writing a phrase from The Exorcist on a mirror, the big spells clearly inspired by Final Fantasy, a matrice dodge, and a lot of little things that look straight out of an anime but feel a bit alien in live action. There is also the opening and end credits. I didn't watch a lot of old Japanimation, but the Cowboy Bebop opening in episode 3 is hard to miss. I don't think I got every reference. After all, I'm not a 40-year-old nerd. Thinking about it, I'm as old as episode 2. It's surprising that the entire thing survived for so long online. A lot of things changed in 25 years. It was a time where it was still allowed to smoke in public transport. In the 10 years between the start and the hiatus at the end of season 2, that changed. Of course, there are things that didn't age well. Some jokes and one-off antagonists are skirting the limit of poor taste, a bit sexist, a bit racist, or a bit ableist. The sound of older seasons is bad enough that YouTube automated captions are completely whack. For a native speaker, it remains understandable, but it requires concentration sometimes. The image is grainy, to say the least. Cameras evolved a lot between 1998 and 2017. There are also things that aged funnily, like the fact that the only character implied to be transgender is the one who was expelled from Hogwarts. There's also Notre Dame de Paris being the HQ for the Order. I guess it's consistent with their general lack of foresight. But what I prefer are the special effects. The ones that age the worst are, of course, using 3D. It's hard to do and the quality is very dependent on the technical aspect of things, an aspect that evolved a lot. Effects using compositing look very cheap in the first episodes, before turning less and less visible with time. It's a good example of an evolution in skill over the years. Glowing circles, lightning, and other balls of light look globally good from start to finish. If you are an artist, you probably already know that glowing things are making everything look cooler, so it's not a surprise. Lastly, the effects that held the best are, in my opinion, those using practical tricks. They are sometimes less flashy, but they feel real, because they are. Overall, it still looks believable today. It is in itself a big accomplishment, when you know that the guy who did the majority of those effects is also the director, the one who plays the main character, the main scenarist, and the editor, in parallel of being a chemistry teacher in middle school. So, why did I talk so long about this series? Well, first because I am frustrated that nobody knows about it. Flanders Company is more known. Noob or Le Visiteur du Futur had enough success that it did go to the big screen. The Sentai France 5 has its fan base in Japan, but Damned remains my favorite, and nobody ever knows it. You probably won't be able to watch it even if I gave you the urge to try, with the lack of proper captions. I probably won't be able to see the end of the story either, because it will not be filmed. In the interviews, the members of the collective always say they are too old now. The third part is concluded, so it's not a bad way to finish, but that's still a bit sad. It's a common feeling when you are a fan of amateur content on the internet. Comics go on indefinite hiatus, fanfics are abandoned halfway, SCP canons are launched and their promise never fulfilled. I don't think it's such a bad thing. What's important is that there is something, and it's worth the vague sense of dread at never knowing its end. That's why I'm just content that this weird, funny little series exists. I like the way it's both very respectful of its inspirations and absolutely full of disrespect for everything. I treasure the fact that it's genuine, enthusiastic, and extremely cheap. I find it cool as fuck in so many ways. Above all, I know it was made with love, and it makes me feel joy.
Je suis le juge. Voici ma sentence.
Personne ne touche à mes amis.
Le travail d'équipe, c'est pas mon truc.
Nous allons faire un petit voyage dans mon univers privé.
Higgins, téléportation.